Welcome to week number 3 of Moneyball Cards. I'm here with Jordan, who runs the YouTube channel Sports Card Analytics. I'm Ryan Nolan. I run Breakout Cards. And this week, we're going to be talking about late bloomers. If you missed last week, we talked about players that just didn't really perform well. And the week before that, we talked about Giancarlo Stanton. So this week, we're changing it up quite a bit, and we're talking about players that entered in the league a little bit older, let's say 25 and older, and if they have any potential as both a card investment, but also making the respective leagues Hall of Fame. So Jordan's going to be talking about a little bit of basketball. I'm going to be talking about baseball. And there's a little bit of parallels between both sports. The hope's not gone for a player if they get called up super late. However, it's more difficult to make the Hall of Fame. Let's show off our cards of the week. So, Jordan, what have you picked up recently? What do you want to show off?
So recently, I guess I made this order back when the NBA Finals happened, but I've never really been a believer in Panini Instant or Tops Now because the quality just seems a little off. But I believe there are opportunities with Panini Instant or Tops Now if you get the right photo and the right moment, if you will. And if you can get it under the radar to where people aren't buying a ton of them and there aren't a ton of copies. So I did get the base. I got 10 of the base of this, and I found out that the print run of this card with the base is about 2,000, a little over 2,000, which I was surprised. But I also was able to pull off an out of 10. This was $750. Giannis Antetokounmpo, out of 10, orange Panini Instant. Finals MVP. I'm gonna try to get a good shot of that. It's not focusing very well. The Finals MVP card with the championship, his first championship trophy, and his Finals MVP trophy. It's autographed, and they put 5 out of 10 on the back there. So I got this for $750. I know some people hate Panini Instant, but I felt like this photo is kind of iconic, and it's just one of those rare instances where I should be able to make money off of this buy, or it's just a really cool card to hold on to.
Yeah, mine does not compare to that one. That's a you put up the big dog today. I'm putting up like a cheapo card. So I just wanted to show off one of the cards I picked up at the New York Card Show. This guy, I don't know if we haven't talked about this player yet. Maybe we'll talk about him in another episode for pitching wise. It is a Walker Buehler Optic rookie card number to 199. I think he's going to win Cy Young this year looking at his advanced stats. So you can see that right here. I know a lot of people don't really like Panini products with baseball because of the logos, but you look at how much some of the basketball cards go for that are the same exact numbering. It's the same exact company. You just don't have a logo. And paid $15 for this card, which it's kind of funny because you can see the $10 sticker he covered up. The guy wouldn't go down back to $10. He was like, have to do 15. But sometimes that's the way it goes. But I have quite a few Bueller cards. I didn't have this one in my collection yet. And I think he wins the Cy Young Award. He's getting mentored right now by Clayton Kershaw. Plays for a legacy organization like the Dodgers. It's a no-brainer long term.
That's definitely something we can look into numbers wise. I know the next episode we're going to do Mythbusters. We're going to look into hobby myths, and we can look into, can you make money off of Panini baseball? Because I personally don't really like it. I don't like the logos missing or being taken out. I like the Chief Wahoo taken out. I know he's taken out everywhere, pretty much.
He's gone now.
Right.
You're back to the Guardians right now.
Right. So I just all the brands and stuff like that being taken out, I personally don't like it, but we can look into that as a myth. Like, can you invest in these cards? Can Panini baseball be something you can actually buy and make money off of?
Yeah, I want to look at the Panini baseball. Another thing on baseball side I want to take a look at probably is, can you make money on pitchers? Because I always see it. No matter when I pick up a pitcher card, people are like, oh, why did you buy a pitcher that's worthless? And the same with defensive players in football. Like, oh, never invest in defensive players, never invest in pitchers. And every sport has their position player that they say, oh, you should never invest in it. So I want to do a Mythbusters on that as well and look historically at pitchers, why pitcher cards kind of went down in the 90s and where they're at today. Can you really make money on that? And I already have some biases, but I want to see the data behind it and see if it confirms the bias that I have. And obviously, I bought a pitcher card, so I think that you can make money off of pitchers. But I believe the data is going to support that. It may not. So it'll be kind of interesting to research it the next week before we do the episode.
Yeah, so anyone watching this, stay tuned for next week. We've already given a spoiler. It's going to be Mythbusters. I was going to say that at the end, but we're going to be looking into stuff like that. For basketball, it's the big men. People say don't buy big men because you can't make as much money off of them, even if they have a lot of hype. So look out for that episode next week.
But yeah, so let's start off talking about basketball. So who are some of the different late bloomers? What's some of the stats that you came up with? I know you mentioned about an article as well. So let's start talking about that a little bit.
So that's why I was happy to show off my Giannis because he's on this list. But I went to clutchpoints.com and they had the top 5 NBA late bloomers of all time. But they kind of kept it to recent players. I'm sure there was other players, back in the 60s and 70s that could fit the bill. But number 1, or actually number 5 on the list was Pascal Ciacom. Recently won a championship. And with these players, I look up their rookie cards and see how much they're worth right now. Like, did their late bloom make them more valuable, or are they still cheap and just never really exploded in value? People don't really see them as boomers. Boomers. But Pascal Ciacom is on the list, number 5. Kyle Lowry on the same team that won the championship in Toronto. Jimmy Butler, he was a later round pick. That's why he's looked at as a late bloomer. And same as Draymond Green, who's number 2. And number 1, you guessed it, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So with Pascal Ciacom, I looked up their Prism PSA 10. And I also compared it. One of these guys was before Panini got the license. Kyle Lowry had his rookie card is Topps Chrome PSA 10. So I compared their Prism rookie PSA 10s and this one Topps Chrome to see, are people really valuing these guys, even though they've boomed later on in their career, or are these still down those levels? And I know part of the hobby landscape, if you will, has brought pretty much everything up, even if you're just an average player. But these guys have boomed over the past few years. I would say Siakam and Kyle Lowry have become bigger names. Giannis has been there. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green have been kind of while the hobby was growing too. So it kind of all goes together. But Siakam's PSA 10 Prism was $115 right now. And that doesn't say everything. So when you're looking at a card's price, you have to also, especially when it's in a slab, you have to also look at the population report, like how many of these are there out there. So with $115, there's 476 Pascal Siakams. And what I did was I decided to take the price and the population count, and I divided them. So I made a price to pop ratio, just kind of to gauge what number would come out. And if we can find undervalued cards, like are one of these guys being overlooked still? And the ratio for Siakam was 0.24. So it was a kind of an awkward number. So I wanted to see the rest of these guys. Kyle Lowry, his Topps Chrome is $411, but there's only 8 of them. So if you do the ratio, it comes out to 51.38. So this might be a number that's just all over the place that we can't really gauge something off of. But I looked at the other 3. So Jimmy Butler, his rookie card, $380, 660 of them, and his ratio is 0.57. Draymond Green, $200, population 407, ratio 0.49. So now we're kind of looking at a trend. We're seeing these numbers under 1. And even Giannis, you might say, well, Giannis, his value should be super high. Well, let's compare the price and the population. So the price is $2,088 for a PSA 10 of Giannis, and there's 2,627 of them. So the ratio is 0.79. So I would say that's about right for Giannis with that ratio. So looking at Kyle Lowry being 51 and there only being 8 of them out there, I would say maybe Kyle Lowry is being overlooked, even though he's a late bloomer and it's kind of exploded. And I'm going to use this ratio later on in the episode with another player. I did look into some football guys to kind of see, like, are these guys being overlooked too? But Kyle Lowry, his Topps Chrome, maybe Panini's just overprinting more than Topps was back in the day, or maybe just not too many people were grading Kyle Lowry Topps Chrome cards. But I would think he's good enough to where, you know, you would grade more than 8, and they would get a 10 with PSA, or maybe it's just a grading situation overall right now. It's just difficult to get cards in and out of PSA, but there are other grading companies, and I didn't look at those population reports. But with these numbers, I would say maybe if you can find like a Kyle Lowry card out there for $400 or less with that population, it might be a good buy. And I know these are all late bloomers. These are guys that were once, you could get these cards for like $5 to $20, and with hobby inflation, they've gone up. But people do, they forget, they forgive and forget. So if you do have players who are looked at as bust and they do bloom late, they will go up in value. That's what the hobby has shown. They will forgive and forget. They're not just going to say, all right, that guy sucks, and even though he's grown lately, they're not going to be like, okay, I'm still not going to buy that guy's card because he sucks. They forgive and they forget, and that's what I've learned by looking at these numbers. So I know you got some baseball guys you want to talk about, so we can take a look at those numbers.
Yeah, so baseball is a little bit skewed. So doing my research, I've noticed that it's mostly pitchers and designated hitters. And it's kind of funny because in the baseball market, some of the lowest valued players across the board right now, at least how the hobby is both pitchers and DHs, because they don't play on the field. You don't see them all the time in every action. And another thing that skewed the data for a little bit of this is steroids. So 2 of the players on this list would be Hall of Famers without steroids. And I still think they end up sneaking in just because of their track record on the field and then off the field, like David Ortiz. Spelled one names right there, but I personally think Ortiz might be one of the first steroid users to be in the Hall of Fame because people kind of overlook it. They love Big Papi as a guy, as a character. A lot of people look up to him, and they're going to ignore his steroid use. A lot of the issues with the old steroid scandal, early 2000s, people, some of the stuff got leaked out, and Ortiz was on that list as one of those names. Yeah, so Biogenesis, Alex Rodriguez, and Nelson Cruz. So Nelson Cruz was linked through the Biogenesis scandal and ended up getting suspended for that. But he's had a non-traditional career. I mean, he's almost 40 years old, I believe, right now, and he's still hitting 30, 40 home runs every single year. And he's actually the closest player to hitting 500 home runs. So when we're recording this, Miguel Cabrera just hit 500 home runs. Congrats to Miggy. Nelson Cruz, if he continues in his trajectory right now, is going to be the next one. And he's a late bloomer. So looking up Baseball Reference, I have it right over here. Nelson Cruz was a rookie at 24. And this goes against all my investment advice. I say never buy into a player that gets called up at age past 23, especially going 24 or 25, because the chances of someone making the Hall of Fame is very low. And the DH position is a little bit different because you're not going to have the wear and tear on the field. And on top of that, hitters, they're fickle, right? Some hitters will die out in their 30s, but Cruz, after the steroids or whatever he's doing right now, he's defying everything. And you can take a look right now. His first season where he hit 30 plus home runs was at the age of 28. I would think that would be a bust. But right now he's sitting at 443 home runs at the age of 40. I mean, you just look year after year, 33 home runs in 22, 29, 24, 27, and then look at me years of 40. So starting in 2014 at age 33, he goes on this tear, 40, 44, 43, 39, 37, 41. And then this year already he has 26 home runs. So from that perspective, he defies what your normal aging is on a baseball player, because once you hit age 32, you typically decline. And he's 40 years old right now, and he's having better stats than his late 20s and early 30s. Just one of those weird anonymous players. And I'm thinking about Cruz as well as the steroids. His cards are very cheap right now. And I think they're going to go up over time because I think a lot of people are starting to turn the blind eye to steroid users, especially as people find out that pitchers cheat as well. The pitchers cheating is just not brand new. I mean, if you go all the way back, they had the spitballs. People always scuffed up the baseballs as well. Cheating has been a huge part of baseball's history. And it's funny how we turn a blind eye to the steroid guys. Sure, they cheated in a more obvious way and they got a huge advantage off of it, but still at the same time, I mean, pitchers are cheating now. Are we going to ban Justin Verlander? Are we going to ban Walker Buehler? Are we going to ban all these other players, Garrett Cole, that doctored the baseball to increase their spin rate? Just saying. Now, another DH. There's two other DHs as well on this list. David Ortiz and then Edgar Martinez. David Ortiz cards are expensive. If you look at some of his PSA 10s and BGS's 9.5s, they're expensive cards. Edgar Martinez, he had a rookie in the middle of the junk wax era, so not that expensive. David Ortiz, he ended up getting called up at 21, but his first season where he hit more than 30 home runs was at the age of 27. Again, using my logic, which I typically use, I would not be buying into a pretty much a DH at age 28 years old. But man, Ortiz went on a tear. You see right here, 31, 41, 47, 54, and just so consistent. He batted pretty much over 300 every single year, and he hit 541 home runs. Edgar Martinez, you take a look at this, his first year, he hit close to 30 home runs. I was at the age of 32 in 1995. Got called up as a 24-year-old, and then he got his first All-Star game at 29, second one at the age of 32. Another player that I would say do not invest in. But all three of these players have the stats that if they didn't take steroids, they'd be in the Hall of Fame. It's just one of those weird things. And Edgar Martinez, by the way, didn't take steroids. He is in the Hall of Fame. But where I saw this happen the most in baseball is from the pitcher perspective side of things. A lot of pitchers ended up getting called up pretty late, and they actually had blooming careers. So currently in baseball, a lot of pitchers get called up late because they either played in college or they stay in the minor league system for a while because they have control issues, or they get a Tommy John surgery and they're out for a year and a half and 2 years. And it happens. But one guy right now that everyone loves, and unfortunately he's hurt, he would have had an amazing season, is Jacob Degrom. And he's going to be one of these examples I'm going to talk about with investing in pitchers. Degrom is a guy I completely avoided. I knew from the beginning he looked really good, but looking up Jacob Degrom right now, so he ended up getting called up at the age of 26. And against all my logic, I say I never buy into these older players. Got called up at 26, won Rookie of the Year. And during that year, he had 9 strikeouts per 9, really good. He had a FIP of 2.67, really good as well. ERA 2.69, and he had a WHIP of a 1.14. So all across, he had really good stats, and he pitched in 22 games. Following year, another great season, 9.7 strikeouts. He had a 2.7 FIP, so it went up a little bit, but yeah, under 1 WHIP. And the last few years, he's been on an absolute tear. And I didn't ever invest in him just because he was an older pitcher. But looking back throughout history, there's a lot of other pitchers that were like that. So you have Hoyt Wilhelm. So I'm loading up Hoyt Wilhelm right now, which, by the way, is the second best rookie card in the 1952 set. The first is going to be Eddie Matthews, then Hoyt Wilhelm. But Wilhelm got called up at the age of 29. Makes the Hall of Fame. Another player that was a late bloomer, Randy Johnson. So Randy Johnson did not pitch well at all until his late 20s, early 30s. His first Cy Young Award was at the age of 31. I know his late 20s seasons, he started getting some votes for Cy Young, but early on, he wasn't that good of a pitcher. In fact, his age 25 season, he had a 1.5 WHIP. Same with his age 27 season at 1.5. I would have never been buying Randy Johnson cards either. And there's numerous examples of pitchers that start doing extremely well later in their careers. And the whole thing is pitching is more of an experience thing. You're obviously going to face better hitters now in the major leagues than in the minor leagues. And you can make mistakes in the minor leagues. If you're throwing 100 miles an hour back then, people are still going to whiff and you're going to do great because of that. But when you get to that major league level, the competition is so much higher. You have to be super precise with your pitches. You have to know sequences, and you have to really research all these batters. You have to have a catcher that knows what they're doing, because that whole extra level, even between AAA and a major league, is a huge thing. And sometimes it takes a few years for a pitcher to really lock in. The only problem right now with investing in pitchers later in their career is because of our pitch counts and then 5-man rotations. Degrom, again, anomaly. But other pitchers, are they going to be anomalies or not? Really, really hard to tell, especially with how many injuries are prevalent today.
So I have to say, with somebody watching this, if you listen to my part and you're interested in basketball cards, I want, and you're not interested in baseball cards, or vice versa, I want to say basketball late bloomers are, the definition is a little bit different. I would say NBA franchises are less patient with basketball players. If you get to age 26, 27, and you're not doing well, you're out of the league. So the late bloomers I talk about, they weren't doing too well early on in their careers, first couple of years. Maybe they were contributing in small ways, and then they became stars pretty much. So baseball, I would say, in your investing, do it just like a baseball franchise would. Be patient. You have to, it's a much different game with baseball than it is with basketball. Basketball is very impatient. Like they have to succeed pretty quickly on in their careers, or they're out of the league. Baseball, I know you'll be out of the league if you just don't succeed, but teams are more patient. They do have minor league systems where they can sit them down and let a guy grow and develop. And I'm very thankful for the minor league system and the way teams handle players, and they don't just throw them into the fire right away like they do in the NBA. I know they have the G League now that's been around, but basically if you're a rookie and you go to the G League, that means you were like undrafted or a later second round pick. You're still thrown into the fire pretty much right away. So the definitions of late bloomers are different. I don't want someone to go into basketball and take it with a baseball perspective, and then you're buying players and you're just holding on to them as they suck into their 20, 25, 26. Like, if they're that age and they still can't shoot a basketball, they're not good. So their cards are going to be worthless. So it's definitely two different perspectives with two different sports.
So we're talking about early players and expectations. I just want to give two examples on the baseball side of things. So first is Vlad Guerrero, Vlad Guro Jr., I should say. Two different players, by the way. If you didn't know, his dad also played. But Vlad Guerrero was 21 years old, and he didn't crush the league like he's doing this year, and his card prices absolutely tanked. And we're talking about a number one overall prospect just because he had average stats. And just to load up these stats, by the way, I don't know them on top of my head, but Vlad Guro Jr. in 2020, which was his off year, which pandemic, obviously, he batted 262 with 9 home runs in 60 games, which isn't great, but he was 21 years old. His rookie season at age 20, he hit 15 home runs in 120 games, and he batted 272. So not horrible stats, but his card prices tanked. But his card prices really, really tanked. And if you look at the progression of his card prices from last year to this year, you're like, what the heck happened? Why were they so cheap? And the thing is, he's 21 years old. To be able to adapt to Major League Baseball and perform at a high level just at that age is unexpected. There's players that do it, but again, the skill gap between AAA and Major Leagues is huge. Another player, and this is happening during the middle of the season, is Wander Franco, number one prospect. All of the card hobby Twitter was saying, Wander Franco, Wander Franco, Wander Franco. And we see his first Bowman Chrome go all the way to $300. It crashed after the first week of him playing baseball. People were selling him after 1 week because they're like, oh, he's not a good player. Baseball is 20-year careers, and you're going to sell a guy who's been hyped for years in the minor leagues after having one bad week in his debut MLB season. And people are still saying, oh, Wander Franco is overrated. I should never bought into him. And right now, I think he has a 25-game on-base streak after that, having that first bad week. So it just shows to you the different mentalities within the hobby, whether you have that basketball mentality or you have that baseball mentality where okay, someone's going to come out of the gate. They might not perform right away, but over time, they're going to catch up. And by that 24, 25 season, if they're not doing well, sell those cards, get into your next investment. Take a little bit of a loss, whatever. If they're doing great, awesome. Well, you're still on for the roller coaster. To it.
No, I was thinking the same thing. When you said people were selling Franco right away, I was like, yeah, that's something the basketball market would do. Like after a bad week, all their cards would be on the market and prices would be tanking. But yeah, you mentioned it. So definitely two different mentalities that people should know those mentalities going into it and not taking one to the other. but with other sports, you look at other sports. You have baseball, deep minor league system. You have basketball; it's getting there, where there's kind of a minor league system. Hockey has a minor league system. MMA has a minor league system. Pretty much, you have to come up through the ranks to get to the UFC or Bellator. So a lot of sports are doing the right thing with minor league systems, and you don't get as many late bloomers who are in the professionals because they're not just thrown into the fire. But one league that does not have a minor league system that really should, it's pretty much the practice squad as their minor league system, is the NFL and football cards. So you can get burned on guys who are just thrown into the fire and they weren't ready and they didn't have a developmental league to grow. So I looked up some players who were late bloomers, and one of them that really stuck out to me was Aaron Rodgers. And I remember when he was drafted, he sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years. And if you think about it, in today's game, if someone didn't do that, if you just threw him out there, and he wouldn't get 3 years. If he didn't succeed right away or after the first 2 years, he'd be out of the league or traded to another team, and they'd be on to the next guy. So he sat behind Favre for 3 years. So basically he was in his minor league system, being in the practice squad and just learning at practices. And look at his career now. Like, if you had Aaron Rodgers cards back then, you're in a mansion and you're just smiling and you can't get that smile off your face. So football is much different than looking at baseball and basketball. It's not about being patient. It's not about being impatient or getting the right guy at the right time. It's really about finding the right guy in the right spot in the right system. And there are late bloomers that come out of nowhere who kind of had a bad career, but they weren't terrible right away. And they're mostly quarterbacks that I'm talking about. And one of them that sticks out is Ryan Tannehill. He was in Miami. He wasn't terrible. Like, he was a guy you could have in your fantasy team and he would get you to a win, but he wouldn't carry you to a win. And he goes to the Tennessee Titans, has Derrick Henry behind him. Now he's got two weapons around him with Julio Jones and AJ Brown.
Henry.
And his rookie card prism is $260. So I looked at that and I was like, okay, that's kind of high. Being someone who's been in the market for a while, that's $260 is a big chunk of change. But I looked at his pop report, and it was only 64. Not too many people were grading these, or whoever had them, they didn't take good care of them. So yeah, I did the price pop ratio with Ryan Tannehill, and it was 4.06. So it was above the one. It wasn't like 0 point something. So I'm thinking maybe Ryan Tannehill is kind of undervalued. The way we're looking at them. So $260, only 64 of them out there. That number may go up a little bit, but it's not going to explode because that card is older. So late bloomers, even in football, if you get the right guy who kind of was with a team for a while, didn't really make the playoffs much, but then goes to a team and does well and explodes, you can make money off those guys too. And I know a guy we've mentioned before is Josh Allen, was a late bloomer just in his career overall. He's just kind of an anomaly. I wouldn't count on everyone having a career like Josh Allen. He was thrown into the fire right away too. And I remember I'm a Browns fan, obviously, and I was in looking at the 2018 draft. I was okay getting Baker Mayfield, but I was thinking Josh Allen, like, who would want Josh Allen? Like, this guy threw 56% completion percentage at Wyoming. Like, he cannot throw the ball, and they say you can't teach accuracy. So he was thrown into the fire, and he threw 52% his first year, and I'm thinking, all right, this guy is just going to be awful. But then next year, 58%. And then last year, almost 70% completion percentage. Like, where did Josh Allen come from? So even the guys in college that you're looking at and you're like, all right, this guy's terrible. If they get to the right system, the right coaching, and that's something you can research, like how has a coach done with quarterbacks previously? You hear about quarterbacks coaches being called like quarterback gurus and stuff like that. And if you do your research and you find the right guys, You'll see which quarterbacks have good people around them and which guys don't. And it really does help with the success. And this is the type of stuff you should be looking into when you're willing to spend hundreds of dollars on cards. So Josh Allen, even though he bloomed pretty quickly in his NFL career, he was a late bloomer just as a quarterback overall, and being able to throw the ball into the ocean. He wasn't able to do that early on.
Yeah, but with Matthew Stafford now being traded to LA, getting out of the Detroit system, I know he's done well in the past. Like looking up his yard wise, I know no really playoffs or championships or anything like that. Only one Pro Bowl, which is kind of surprised. But I mean, he's putting up a lot of 4,000 to 5,000 yards consistently year after year. What do you think about him moving over to that LA system now? Is he going to have that chance in the spotlight to potentially go to a Super Bowl? Do you think now he's going to be considered a late bloomer potentially, or what's your whole perspective on that side?
Yeah, once again, it's about the team around him. He does have a good team around him. They do have a good defense. But he doesn't have. He's not going to be like a Ryan Tannehill where he has a Derrick Henry behind him and the wide receivers around it. With Derrick Henry at the end of the season for the past couple of years, you just give him the ball and he runs for 200 plus yards, and that really has helped Ryan Tannehill win games. But when I see Stafford, I think the same thing as I did with Ryan Tannehill. And there's other guys out there like this who have just been kind of stuck on a team like the Detroit Lions where they play well, they put up good numbers, and I think of fantasy, and I'm like, all right, this guy is a guy you'd be happy with on your fantasy team, but they just weren't in the right system. And I'm not going to make predictions or anything, but he could be in a good spot where if you have his cards and you got them for cheap, where they could go up. And if he wins and if he's in the right system, but I'm not 100% sure on LA. I've been paying more attention to Cleveland than anything this offseason.
Yeah, no worries. But that brings up another point about different sports. So obviously with basketball, it's a very, very team centric. People really care about the championships, and you need to have a full team because you can get guarded with better players, and you need to have the full roster there to have the opportunities. We see like people building out super teams to try to take advantage of the system and try to win championships. With football now, we're starting to see the super teams as well. We saw Buccaneers establish a super team and end up winning. We see what's happening with the Titans right now and talking about how quarterbacks change systems. But with baseball, you can be on a horrible team and you can still be a late bloomer and do extremely well. Just kind of showing people that with baseball, the team matters. Obviously, you want to win World Series. But at the same time, there's a lot of Hall of Famers that haven't won one, and even superstars of today. So Ohtani and Trout both play for the Angels. The Angels really don't make the playoffs ever. You think having two superstars like that on a team would make the playoffs? They just have a bad roster around them. But still, their card prices, you can see how expensive they are. So just to kind of show you on the baseball side things, if you're not familiar with the sport, you have to be on a great team to find that player.
Yeah, and it definitely makes me think of like baseball is more of an individual sport. Like when you step into the batter's box, your teammates, I mean, they could make you better or worse based off some intel. But overall, it's you and the pitcher. Same with the pitcher. It's you and the batter, but you do have a catcher. If you do have a really good catcher, defensive catcher, that can help you and help you improve. But when you think of hitters, yes, it's just you and the pitcher and your coach and everything you've learned in the past. So if you're a great hitter, if you're a Mike Trout on a bad team, your cards are going to do great. If you're Ohtani and you're hitting well and you're on a bad team, your cards are going to do great. People don't see it the same way as they see basketball and football. Because if your basketball teammate just keeps turning the ball over, you're not going to get the shots that you need, and it's going to affect you, and it's going to affect your card prices. Same with having a bad offensive line around you in football. If that guy keeps letting you get sacked, your numbers are going to look awful. Your actually is going to look bad. Your card prices are going to go down. So I'm not saying baseball is like the best sport to go and invest in. I mean, that's up to you and who you are personally and what you enjoy. Go invest in what you enjoy, collect what you enjoy. But overall, yes, I would say baseball is more of an individual sport.
Yeah, and let's say I was going to talk about the football side thing. So besides the quarterback position, was there any other positions that you saw any late bloomers in?
That's something I want to talk about in the Mythbusters.
All right. Well, if you guys want to find out about that, you better watch next week's episode. So any final thoughts you want to talk about?
But yeah, last episode I mentioned I was going to go to the minor league game in Charlotte and get the number one overall prospect, Adley Rushman. Looks like I got three of them, all personalized to my son, me, and my wife. And I gotta say, the guy is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He sat there, he took the time to listen to people's questions and answer them, and he asked for my name, he asked for son's name, and he was asking how to spell them. Like he was really taking the time. And the guy is just I'm a fan now of Adley Rushman. He before the game he said, "Guys, I got to go to work. No autographs. I'll do it after the game. I got to work." So he's a guy that looks at the game as a job, and he's not going to sit there like before I go into my 9 to 5. I'm not going to be signing autographs walking into the office. Like that's something I'll do after work. You ask me for my autograph after work, yeah, I'll do it. But definitely a fan of Adley Rushman.